Hi, this is Jim Bach, Technical Advisor for IHS Kingdom, bringing you another Kingdom Did You Know? A series where we provide you with information related to functionality and workflows within Kingdom that you may not have been aware of. I'd like to start off by asking you to try and recall the very first time you were taught the concept of area. In all likelihood, like myself, you were probably taught a series of equations and you could calculate the areas of circles, rectangles, squares, triangles. Now, these equations, they worked really well, but they would only work for a very limited subset of problems. What do I mean by that? Well, at some point you were probably introduced irregular shaped polygons and you needed to calculate those areas as well. Well, we got techniques for those outside of the equations. So to the left, maybe you would take your irregular shaped polygon and you would trace it on some graph paper, and just by simply counting the squares inside of that polygon, you could quickly calculate what the area of that polygon to the left was. Or maybe you learned an example like we have on the right. You would take that larger polygon and you would break it into smaller shapes that you could easily calculate a whole series of rectangles and squares and calculate all of those areas, add them up, and voila, you would come up with an area for that polygon we have over to the right. Now, both of those techniques, they actually work quite well. But what if someone were to ask you to calculate the area of hundreds or thousands of polygons, and we also put a time constraint on you and you had to do it very rapidly? Well, those techniques really aren't going to cut it. Fortunately, in the 1800s, a Swiss mathematician, he invented a device called a polar planimeter, and what it would allow you to do, it would allow you to trace the outline of whatever polygon it was that you were trying to calculate, and there would be a rotating wheel that would keep track of how much area that you actually traced, and you could pretty quickly calculate what those areas were. And that's exactly what this picture is demonstrating. We have some workers in the 1940s, and they're calculating these Census Bureau areas on those large desks that you see right there. Now, for today's workflow, or did you know rather, we're going to try and show you some of the various techniques we have inside of Kingdom that are going to allow you to calculate areas. Some of those are going to kind of draw back on what we see here with the planimeter, but then we also have other techniques that are going to be a little bit faster and more efficient than actually tracing those objects. So with that, let's hop into the workflow. For today's recording, we're going to demonstrate how easy it is for you to calculate areas based off of various features associated with your maps inside of Spatial Explorer. Now, we're going to start off looking at calculating areas associated with our county boundaries. So let's actually turn off the contours that we have on this so we can focus in a little bit more detail on our county boundaries. Now, the first workflow we're going to show you is going to be very similar to what the geographers in the 40s needed to do. We're going to basically digitize the points associated with one of our county boundaries on the base map itself. To do so, we're going to go to the data source and add a new, what's called an editable polygon layer. We want to type in EP for editable polygon for this layer. You can call it whatever you want. And let's give ourselves a little bit more real estate here. But once we've created that layer, you want to make that layer active. And at this point, you can zoom in to one of those county boundaries. And if you come to the bottom toolbar here, one of the tools is going to say Edit Layer. Turn that on and select this tool, Insert Polygon. At this point, you can start digitizing that particular boundary. So we're going to just come up here and very carefully add points at the corners of our county boundary. And we're going to double click in the last corner. That completes your polygon. And if we cancel the editing and come back and select this particular polygon we just generated, you'll notice underneath the details it's going to give you the area associated with that in a number of different units. So you have square feet, square meters. If I scroll over to the right, you'll see we also have square miles and kilometers. So it calculates the area in a number of different units for you, and you can choose which units you want to work with a little bit later. Now, This works really great if you have these real simple county boundaries to work with, but what if, say, you were interested in the area associated with one of these other county boundaries that's not quite as easy to see. So let's say we wanted to digitize this county boundary. Well, first, if you wanted to digitize it, you would want to kind of zoom in to get started. And then once you start digitizing it, you would realize that this task actually might take you quite a bit of time. So I'm going to start digitizing it. And I'm just doing this really fast. But if I wanted to be real accurate, one, I would want to zoom in quite a bit more, add a lot more points. But as you can see, if you wanted to accurately digitize this by hand, this could take you upwards of an hour, depending on how often or how large of a zoom you came inside to do that particular polygon. So I'm going to suggest a different workflow when you're working with a real complicated shape like that. So what we're going to do here is let's actually just select that particular icon, and we're going to remove that polygon that we generated previously, and we're going to zoom back out. And so for this new workflow, we're actually going to calculate not just the area associated with this county, but we're going to calculate all the counties simultaneously. To do so, we want to go back to that shapefile that all the layers were brought in originally with, and we can turn off that other editable polygon. But with this layer active, let's select all. So basically we're selecting all of the counties, and we are going to copy all of that to an editable polygon. Select save. It's going to ask you to give that layer name again, so we can call this county. EP for editable polygon. Select OK. And now if we turn or make that layer active, and let's turn this one off, you'll see that indeed we did calculate editable polygon representing that entire region. All of the counties have been accounted for, and if we select any of those county boundaries, you'll notice that yes, underneath the details we have calculated the area associated with that. So we have acres, square miles, square meters, and let's scroll over here. As an added bonus, any attribute that was associated with that original shapefile is also associated with your editable polygon layer. So we happen to know that this is Reeves County that we're looking at over here. This is Pecos County. So as an added bonus, you get some additional information that was already associated with those shapefiles. So this may be a more desirable workflow if you're calculating all of those areas. Now, for the final piece, we're going to take a look at our contour. So let's actually turn off, or rather, let's turn on that Sprayberry layer and turn off our editable polygon layer. And we want to convert these contours that we brought in from Kingdom into editable polygons as well. To do that, you're going to want to do one item underneath the settings first. So underneath the display settings, you want to add color fill to your contours. Just select OK. And then once you have that color fill, if you select all of those contours, one of the options that's going to be made available to you is copying that to an editable polygon. So we're going to take all of those contour lines and convert them into editable polygons, just like we did with the shapefile previously. So let's call this contour EP, editable polygon. Select OK. And now, again, let's make that layer active and turn off the original contours. You can see we have all of the contours have now been converted into an editable polygon. And just like that county editable polygon layer, if we come in here and we were to highlight any of those particular regions, let's hit the select button. Highlight that closed contour. You notice that it gives us the area associated with that particular editable polygon layer. So I can come in here, highlight various polygons, and calculate what that area is associated with each of those. Now, I want to show you one other advantage associated with these editable polygons, and let's actually select all of our contours first. So we have all of our contours, but if you come to this drop down menu, you'll notice that one of the options is this polygon compute. Well, what does that do for you? Well, you have a number of grids inside of Kingdom, and I can extract what the arithmetic mean, the average of any of those grids over each of these closed contours inside of this editable polygon layer. Another one that a lot of people are really interested in is, say, doing a volume calculation. Now, the volume calculation is going to make the assumption that you're working with a thickness grid, and we actually have some thickness grids here. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to run this calculation. We're going to select an isochore grid for, let's say, our upper Sprayberry. We'll hit select here, and we're going to choose volume to calculate. Now, granted, you could do all these additional calculations as well, but we're just going to do this last one. So we'll call this volume, and we'll call that Sprayberry upper to Sprayberry lower. And we'll select compute. And it's going to run through, and it's going to calculate the thickness for each and every one of those closed contours that we have. And as you can see, we're talking about the entire Permian Basin, so there's a lot of areas that it's calculating right now. We're about halfway through those calculations, and when we're done, we're going to show you what that output looks like in just a few seconds here. And again, the advantage is that you can run as many various calculations on as many different grids as you wish using this polygon compute function, which you may not have been aware of previously. Well, we just got a few more seconds here for this computation to take place. Let's go ahead and hit close. And so now if we go to the details, and let's select, instead of all, let's just select an individual one. It's just easier to find. If we highlight this particular region right here, and if you scroll through here, you notice it did indeed calculate what that volume area was for us, again based off of that isopac map and the area that we were calculating for. So as you can see, we have a lot of different workflows in terms of calculating area and volume right here inside of Spatial Explorer. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and secondly, take some time to try out this workflow for yourself. Take care. Thank you for watching this episode of Kingdom Did You Know? If you have any questions regarding this workflow or Kingdom in general, please feel free in contacting either myself or our support desk.